Hi friends, my name is Emily and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming the mid-year freakout tag featuring Bosif, my dog. There will be sounds. We're gonna open an adult beverage here. Drink responsibly. We're just gonna chat as we do the mid-year freakout tag. The questions for the tag will be linked down below, as will the original creator's video if it is still public at this point. Question number 1 is the best book you've read so far in 2022. I have two that I was torn between for different reasons. So the first book that I'm thinking about is A Marvellous Light by Freya Marske, which is queer 18th century fantasy. It reminded me a lot of Harry Potter, like grown up, graphic gay sex, Harry Potter. In that you have a character who's like a political person who liaises between the magical community and the non-magical community, and they end up coming together and like looking for some secret powerful magical objects. Dun dun dun! And there's like murder and mystery and like just like the vibes of Deathly Hallows where the kids are searching for the Horcruxes. Like that sort of vibe, like fairy tale status objects. Are they real? Somebody believes they're real because they're doing murders. It was that adventure, I suppose. But then add in pretty graphic sex. So the reason I say that because I think if you pitch something like Harry Potter, you're apt to have somebody gift A Marvellous Light to a young person. I'm not opposed to gifting kids books with sex in them, but a lot of adults are, and this has very graphic sex in it. So if you're going to gift that to somebody like an older teen who's finished Harry Potter, know that. But it was just really cute and I was so excited about it. I requested and just got access to the sequel, an arc of the sequel. The second book that I was thinking about when I was thinking best book so far is Water Shall Refuse Them by Lucie McKnight Hardy. So this book is the first book to promise Shirley Jackson vibes that actually delivers for me. So we have a young female character. Her family is going on a trip to a cottage to get away because reasons. And like you're gonna slowly find out why. So at the start you just have a bunch of like weird things dropped and you're sort of gathering the pieces, trying to figure out why the mom is so shut down, why a 16-year-old Nif is taking care of her 4-year-old brother, why the dad is the way he is. Like you're gonna find all that family dynamic stuff out as you read, but you just get dropped little crumbs and you're sort of like gathering them, trying to make sense of it all. And on top of that, Nif is sort of inventing a religion, some sort of pagan witchcraft thing that she calls the Creed. And so that's a little bit creepy. And then she's in a small town, this small town where they go for the summer. They're outsiders and she befriends the other outsider, right? And it's like weird religious small town folks. And like the vibes of this book are impeccable. I completely get why you would compare this to Shirley Jackson. So yeah, both of those books really stand out as just like the winners of this year so far. Question number 2 is the best sequel that you've read so far this year. I realized in flipping through my bullet journals that I actually haven't read that many sequels, so the best one goes to Where the Drowned Girls Go by Seanan McGuire. So this is the 6th or 7th installment in the Wayward Children series. I know that's a bit of a Marmite series. I personally love them and I love what is being set up in Where the Drowned Girls Go. Fairly early on we hear about like 2 places that children who have gone through a door into another world can go to sort of recover. And one is Eleanor's Home for Wayward Children and the other is like an institute. And Eleanor's approach is like acknowledging that this happened to you, don't forget about it, embrace it, maybe you'll find your way back through the door. The Institute is like, no, we're gonna make you conform. And so we're getting a taste of that other school this time. We're getting a larger, probably overarching baddie established, I guess. Like if the first 5 or 6 books are sort of meandering and whimsical and you get to sort of taste, stepping through the door, a taste of what these wayward children experience, Where the Drowned Girls Go is setting us up for something like maybe a bit of a mini arc that hasn't been present in the first little bit of the series. At least that's what I'm hoping. So I really enjoyed it. I do think that you can pick a lot of the earlier ones up without any context, but I think we're starting to get to the point in the series where it might be weird to pick one out of context. Number 3 is a new release you haven't read yet. One of the things that has sort of been dominating my channel this year is my reading journal plans, my desire to tackle my TBR, and a no-buy year. I have fairly strict no-buy rules for myself, and there are 2 new releases that I keep looking at, that keep coming up different places, that I think if I weren't doing this no-buy year, I would have purchased. I actually looked and my library doesn't have either of these titles. The books that I keep seeing everywhere are Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart, which is, I believe, a queer romance. The reason that interests me is because I really liked Call Me By Your Name. We like queer fiction here in this house. And then the other one is The Spectacular by Zoe Wittall. So I read The Best Kind of People by Zoe Wittall, and that was good. I really enjoyed that. The Spectacular, I believe, is about 3 generations of women, which appeals to me more than The Best Kind of People. Also, the cover is gorgeous, and Indigo right now is doing like an Indigo collabs with Book Talk sort of thing. There's like a book club happening, and like as a former Indigo employee, I see that and I'm like, oh, I would like to participate, but like I'm not, for obvious reasons. Number 4 is most anticipated release still to come. So I have 2, and this is why I don't think the other 2 titles will be in my life this year, unless I break the no-buy rules. The first one is A Prayer for the Crowned Shy by Becky Chambers. It's a T-Monk novel. I loved the novel that came out last year. It was just a warm hug, absolute perfection, and that comes out on July 12th. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be using my Q3 wish list. Unless something like really pops up and catches my eye, I'm pretty sure that my Q3 treat, if I'm still doing really well with the no-buy, will be A Prayer for the Crowned Shy. The second book that I'm thinking about is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. Now, I haven't been pre-ordering a lot of Stephen King's works. I've been slightly disappointed by a lot of his recent releases, so I have been waiting. Like, why not wait and then get them in a cheaper paperback form? For a while there, I was getting the new Stephen King in the hardback like the day it came out. I mean, if I'm not gonna read them again and again, why spend like 50 bucks on a hardback book? But Fairy Tale, if you've been on this channel a while, you know that like fairy tales is a common interest. It's a checkbox thing for me. And also the Dark Tower series, like the cover of this book has 2 characters like going down a circle staircase, and like that in my mind pings the tower. I have no idea if this is going to overlap with the tower in any ways, but the Dark Tower series is my favorite thing that Stephen King has produced. It's one of my favorite book series of all time. I just think it is so clever and so well done. And so to see the cover design, to hear that it's like a fairy tale, and like the Dark Tower is like pretty steeped in fairy tales too, I think it's gonna be my Q4 treat, or I'll ask for it for Christmas and it will solve my problem. And also a lot of these, like the new release, the Stephen King release that comes out in the fall, usually ends up price pointed Black Friday at Indigo. So like I'm not gonna pre-order it. I'm not gonna ask anyone to pay full price for this because I know it's gonna be a hot title. It's gonna be a giftable title. So I could probably get somebody to buy it for Christmas for me. So that comes out on September 6th. Number 5 are biggest disappointments. And I have two here. One is Boy Snow Bird by Helen Oyeyemi, which was actually a DNF. So this book sounded so good. Again, we have fairy tale vibes with the Snow White retelling aspect. There is this plotline of this like very white woman marrying a white passing black guy, and then they have a daughter who looks black and like the consequences of that. And like at the point where I DNF'd it, it was strongly hinted that the white passing husband had a sister that was banished from his family because she was not white passing. And so they're this like affluent, secretly black family. All of this sounds fantastic, but the execution of it, like the characters were just so bland, the world was so bland, and I've read other things by Helen Oyeyemi and like I've loved them, and so this was so disappointing because like I was expecting so much more because of how much I loved. I'm thinking especially White is for Witching. I loved White is for Witching, and like that did not feel like a bland story, right? Like the writing in that was fantastic. Also, the concept here with Boy Snowbird also sounds fantastic, and like it just wasn't working for me. So that was disappointing because I was really looking forward to it. I was really excited about it. The other big disappointment is Wetlands by Charlotte Roche. Wetlands by Charlotte Roche is about a teenager, an 18-year-old named Helen, who goes into the hospital to have an operation to have some infected tissue cut out of her butthole because she has hemorrhoids, like really bad prolapsed hemorrhoids. She cuts them shaving and the tissue around her hemorrhoids ends up infected. It is her adventures in hospital, expelling fluids. It is the most disgusting thing that I have ever read. Any fluid that comes out of her body, she will eat, believes that it should be eaten. She really critiques the uneven grooming standards of people with vulvas genitals compared to people with penises genitals. She talks a lot about like the cleanliness that her mom instilled in her and not her brother, and so she's like rebelling against that. It's sort of pitched as this like a really empowering look at female sexuality, but and I don't know if this is purely down to translation. It truly reads like a 13-year-old boy trying to tell the grossest story ever. And that could in part be because the translator that they chose for this is the editor of Playboy. Now, somebody did ask like why I chose to read this in English and not in German, and I feel like my German isn't up to snuff with the amount of slang that's in this book. But then I've been researching it and I was reading this article where somebody was like, gosh, I don't know about the translation here. Was the word used this many times in the German text, or does this scream Playboy editor translating this text? So like, I still don't think that my German is up to snuff to make that assessment of the translation, but either way, this book was disgusting. I don't think it made a really compelling feminist argument. Like Charlotte Roche in interviews seemed to think that she's being quite radical in like having a character be really intimately in touch with the body. I guess challenging the idea that anything that comes out of our body is disgusting, that bodies are disgusting. Like I think a lot of people don't think that their body is disgusting, but they don't have to eat bodily fluids like boogers and earwax and vaginal fluids and smegma to prove that they're okay with the human body, human bodying. It really does read like shock value, like somebody who thinks they're being quite radical. It was just a gross book. Like I have read equally disgusting stories in doing like exposure therapy sessions and having to read stories about people vomiting. You could go to Reddit and look for like the grossest thing to ever happen to me, and like you will get probably some of the things that Helen does in this book, or like you'll have the same experience. So yeah, that was disappointing. Question number 6 is the biggest surprise. The biggest surprise for me is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. For context, I am not generally a romance reader. I think at some point there was an Ask Me Anything or something, and somebody asked if there were books that I wouldn't read. And at the time, I think I did say that I would probably never dabble in romance. And like, here I sit eating my hat. I am like actively seeking out romance novels like Ali Hazelwood's novels specifically, because a lot of what I'm discovering in the romance genre doesn't work for me. Like, every once in a while I take like a little step in because something, you hear about it enough times and you're like, all right, let's see what everyone's talking about, right? The Tessa Bailey books are a prime example. They're so popular, so I keep going back to them being like, okay, what do people like about this? And every time I'm like, this man is a bundle of red flags. Like, why? Is that the fantasy? Do we want super possessive, emotionally abusive, controlling love interests? Is that hot? Is that the fantasy? I don't know, that just doesn't work for me. I have finally found something that does, and that is Ali Hazelwood's writing about lady academics in STEM. The men that they date are not controlling red flag people. I've said this before, that seems like such a low bar, but that's where the bar is based on what I've read. All I want out of the romantic lead is that he is like kind and respects boundaries and is interested in consent and like doesn't stalk the main character. Wow. The extra bonus is that all of the love interests in Ali Hazelwood's works like really care about and respect the academic work and like the career work that the heroine is putting in. To have your intellectual work respected, sexy. I loved The Love Hypothesis. It sent me down a rabbit hole. If you've seen my May wrap up, I have now read everything that Ali Hazelwood has written, including the advanced reader copy of Love on the Brain. It's about a lady neuroscientist who gets to work with the engineers at NASA. That was a surprise. And I guess I stand corrected. Question number 7, fave new author, Ali Hazelwood. Question number 8, newest fictional crush. I don't do that. Question number 9 is new favorite character. I think Nick from Heartstopper is my new favorite character. So I have now read all 4 volumes of Heartstopper. I've read all the novels and the novellas in the Heartstopper universe. I think Nick is really great, and I really appreciate him as a character for being really understanding of folks with mental health issues. Just such an understanding and compassionate character, and I really appreciate how he functions in the series. Number 10 is a book that made you cry. I don't have one. I am cold and dead inside. Number 11, a book that made you happy. Love on the Brain, which is the arc that I'm talking about by Ali Hazelwood. The narrative voice of our protagonist is perfection. She just came to life in a way that a lot of characters have not been for me. Like, I could see her as a fully formed human being, and like, the story was just delightful. The most beautiful book you got or bought this year. As I've mentioned, I have not been buying a lot of books, so the pickings are slim. So the new buy that I have purchased that I think is probably the most attractive out of all of the books is the June Small Book Club book. And that is Follow Me to Ground. I really like the weird imagery. I have been critical of headless ladies, chopped up lady bits, but the more I read this and the more that I think about this like chopped up lady with like a flower hat, it's working. I get it. I like it. And it's just unsettling enough to go with what's happening inside. So I do think that that is a beautiful cover. The final question here, number 13, is books you need to read by the end of the year. And I have so much left on my TBR. I set myself 5 books to reread. I've read one of those. I set myself 30 books to read. Like, I picked 30 from like the massive, overwhelming TBR, and I've picked away at those as well, but like the majority of the books are still here, still unread. If I had to do like only like one thing from that initial TBR video, it would be to read the last 2 Shirley Jackson novels that I have so that I can read her biography and sort of do a video talking about her whole body of works. The other thing that I need to finish is Lilith's Brood. Lilith's Brood is 3 novels bound up in one. I read the first one and I was like, whoa, that is intense. I need to like pause. Work's gotten harder, life's gotten harder. I shouldn't have stopped. Do you know what I mean? I should have just powered through, I think, because it's so good, it's so interesting, but it's difficult reading. And I suspect that the next 2 books in the Lilith's Brood bind up are going to be difficult. I do need to finish it. Alright, so that brings us to the end of the mid-year freakout tag. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. How is your reading year going so far? I like this tag because it asks you to think about the positives, whereas I feel like when I'm doing my own stats tracking and goal tracking, I'm just like a little ball of sadness, and it's nice that this tag gives you an opportunity to think about happy things. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons who make videos like this possible. Like I mentioned early on in the video, there is a small book club discussion happening this June. It is on Monday, June 27th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are talking about Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainford, which is truly bizarre. Now that I'm like halfway into it, it's fucking weird. The quote on the front, weird, tender, haunted, and deeply affecting spectacle unlike anything you will read this year. Correct. And I am so curious about what is gonna happen. Like, I keep making assumptions and then something else happens and I'm like, oh, I'm fucking wrong again. Like, where is this gonna go? I would love to chat about this with you. I hope you're all doing well, that you are staying safe. Bye.